Meet 22-year-old James Karanja, also known as Mary Waithera. She is not your classic-looking girl. This is the high school that molded her into who she is today. The stage in her life when everything will come to light and the naked truth told.
Sikuwa astonished with the issue. I just took it as it was rolling. So naamka asubuhi, naona okay, msichana kaika mimi. So what I just need to do is I just hide myself.
It was Mary Kimaro, her confidant and high school teacher, who noticed that Mary was different from other students.
He accused me of fixing him. We talked with him the same day, and the reason was that there were a number of letters. We had done a search in the dorm and had found some letters, which were kind of love letters.
Miss Kimaro showed love and guided Mary Waithera on a difficult journey. Years later, Miss Kimaro still has fond memories of her former student, despite occasionally referring to him as a her in our chit-chat.
No, I'm not, because it is actually, I even tell her, it is difficult for me to say that he's a he, a she, yeah. At times I will refer to him as a him, as a she, yeah. Because you see, from Form 1 up to Form 4, having dealt with her as a her, and then all of a sudden a he, yeah, it can be confusing.
But why are we referring to James as a her, yet he visibly and unmistakably strikes us as a man? Gender identity can be confused for sexual orientation. The intersex group is where James finds himself, and he is not alone. Intersex is a person born with a reproductive anatomy that does not seem to fit the typical definition of female or male. One finds a female with XX chromosomes having the male XY genetic material. Similar, a man's typical XY chromosomes share the same body as the XX female chromosomes.
And that is a story that was done by my colleagues Zinzi Kibiku and Lofty Matambo, born this way. And evidently, we have Mary Waithera there, who later changed to James. And sometimes this can be very confusing for the person and also for those around them. And we'd like to just have a conversation around that and understand a little bit more, because one of the things that possibly would help us relate well and understand is when we know what is going on. And joining me to do that is Dr. Mungai, who is from Nairobi University Pediatric Department. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Okay. Now, first of all, is this something common to have somebody who is not quite sure of their sex at some point or the other?
Yes, it is. It is common. Though in our setup, we haven't done in much research to check how many of these children we have in the country. One, because when you get a child with abnormalities in their genitalia, most of the time these babies are hidden. Mm-hmm. So they don't come out in the open. Some of them, that's why they appear very late. Because like this young man, we can see this is a problem that was there from the beginning. It's not the child, the problem that came when he was in Form 4. No, there was a problem with his physical appearance. And sometimes the female looks more, the boys sometimes they look more female than male.
Right.
At the beginning.
Okay. And for those of us who are watching, in case you have any questions or anything you'd like to contribute towards the conversation, we'll open up the phone lines. And if you have any questions you'd like to engage Daktari directly, feel free to do so. Now, Daktari, for the sake of understanding, because you say it is something fairly common, and of course we know there are several things that play out here. First of all, we've got probably culture that would make people want to hide. Secondly, there is the issue of lack of information. Just the fact that you don't know what is going on makes us want to hide it. Maybe let's make it bold and clear what exactly happens for somebody to be in that kind of a situation.
Maybe we can look at the slide so that I can explain to you more about what happens. Because for somebody during the creation after conception, it takes a lot of genetic material to be mixed up and come up with the proper structure of the external genitalia of a person. Mm-hmm. And sometimes by the time they are being conceived, there is this baby has a deficiency of one of the chemicals in the body. If they don't have this chemical in the body, then when they are born, what is going to happen is that they'll be having an abnormality. It's like you find sometimes if somebody without one finger, somebody with a leg that is a bit twisted. But the main problem is at the genetic material. When they were being created, something happened. So it is not, because most of the time why the children are hidden is because the mother is always accused.
Okay. Maybe before we go to now the mother, I'd want us to, Director, if you can have the slides so that you can explain to us from a biological perspective, because I know this would also help many parents, especially when the child is born, for you to identify that there's something, there's a misnomer and know how to deal with it. So if we can have those slides which basically explain that. If we can have the slides, I'd request that we have the, okay. There we go.
We have the first slide, the slides. What you have, maybe if you look at the slide, I don't have them. I have them here.
Yep, go on.
What happens is that the first 5 weeks, the baby is producing, the cells are being produced in number, and the size, they are growing in size and the number. But then by the time they are reaching 7, the baby is reaching 7 weeks after conception.
If we can go to the next page of that slide, Director, go on, carry on, explain.
So what happened is that by the time they are reaching to the 7 weeks, then the genitalia now is differentiating, either to become female or male. What do you determine whether the baby will become male or female? Because the baby gets the sperm from the father and the ovum from the mother, the two combined. The male sperm, the sperm from the father can either carry an X or carry a Y. If the sperm is carrying a Y, the baby will be a boy. If it's carrying an X, the child will be a female. So what is going to happen is that if we have the Y chromosome, then it determines that we're going towards the testis direction, as you can see in that slide. And then if there is no Y chromosome, what is going to happen is that you are going to differentiate towards going towards the ovary. We can look at the next slides there.
Okay.
So the next slide is explaining more about more genes that are required for you to go to because it's not just the direction of the male that you go. You also go through you also require the genes to push you towards the X chromosome, the Y chromosome, to become a boy.
But you can move to the next slide, please.
Then the next slide is showing that we have the ovary. Because now when you don't have the SLY, when you don't have the SLY gene, then you go towards the ovary. If you don't have the Y chromosome, then by default you go towards the female direction. But even to go to the female direction, we require more hormone. We can look at the next slide.
Okay.
So that we explain the next slide after that.
So basically, there is an imbalance in the Y and X chromosome.
Yes, because the reason why I put that slide there, that first slide there, that is you look at the amount of chemicals the male child produces. The female child doesn't produce these chemicals because you have a lot of testosterone being produced from the testes of the baby, which you determine because the hormones from the boy determines the organs that will be produced later on. If the boy has a problem, like when you're making chemicals, you require some enzymes. If one of the enzymes is not there, then the external genitalia of the boy will not develop. So you can go to the next slide so that you move faster.
Okay, as you're explaining.
So what will happen is that we can go to that slide that is there, that is indicated in that slide, is to show that when the first 3 months of the baby is producing as much testosterone as the father.
The first 3 months?
The first 3 months.
Wow.
The baby is produced as much testosterone as the father. The brain is being primed as a boy. At the same time, the hormones are helping to form the external genitalia of a boy. If the baby doesn't have the chemicals, then the external genitalia of the baby will be affected. You can go to the next slide.
Okay, the next slide, please, which has, you can still explain as we get there.
Yeah, the next slide, what it is explaining is that if you have the Y chromosome, then you make your testes. The testes start growing now. And when the testes start growing, then you produce, when the testes start produce chemicals, at that time, before 3 months, you start producing chemicals that you make the formation of the female organ become impossible, or try to inhibit the formation of the female. You remember that at the beginning, there were a mass of undifferentiated genitalia. So it goes towards the male direction. So the male structure now, the male genitalia in the uterus, now start inhibiting or try to stop the formation of the female organs inside the uterus, so that the baby does not have 2 organs. That's what the body does.
Okay. And now, when all this is happening, is this all happening in the womb, or is this something that now develops once a child has been born?
It starts from conception up to 7 weeks after conception, not after birth. Even sometimes the mother doesn't know she is pregnant.
Right.
Yes, she doesn't know she is pregnant sometimes.
But this process has already begun?
Yes, it has already begun.
Okay.
It has already begun.
Okay. And now, in an instance where you have that imbalance, by the time the child is born, you'll find, like now the story that we just ran of Mary Waithera, who initially looked so much like a girl, but later felt and developed features of a boy, including the voice.
So what happens, like if you have the Y chromosome, you form the testes. Testes are inside. The testes are usually inside the body. So what will happen is that if the testosterone is supposed to be converted to another chemical, most people know only about testosterone, because everybody knows about testosterone. But the testosterone is converted to another chemical, which helps to form the external genitalia of the boy. So if that chemical is not sufficient, the boy will form a structure outside, looking not very clear whether it's a girl or a boy. And sometimes the midwife might have a problem to identify. And especially if the child is born at home, some people may look at this is a girl, because you can't imagine a boy not very definite that it is a boy. So what will happen with this baby is that this baby then will be named a girl. But then by 12, 13, 14, 15 years, when this young man is in secondary school, instead of developing breast, then what he does, he develops is break the voice. Because the testes are there. The testes are there. So they start forming the male, it start forming now the structures that are expected of a boy who is now growing up to become a man.
Okay. Are there instances where you have one who's possibly got both genitalia?
What happens if you are producing enough hormones to make a man? Sometimes, like I was telling you, that the baby, by around 3 months, complete 3 months, is able to produce chemicals to inhibit or to stop the growth of the female structures. If a baby does not produce that chemical to stop the growth of the female structure, then you can have the structure of the female, but most of the time it is not viable. Because it depends on how much chemical you have of each. Because if you produce a lot of male hormones, then it will stop the growth of the female. What you have is something we call it rudimentary, something that is not very functional. But you can have a uterus there, but it's not functional. But it's very hard to have both of them working very efficiently. You say, I'm a man, fully formed, and then my uterus is fully functional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it possible then to have a child who is born with fully developed genitalia towards one side, maybe boy or girl, but possibly the hormonal levels change over time to a point where they have certain, if it's a boy, it's male genitalia, but they also present female characteristics?
Maybe you can look at this. The last slide, the second last slide we have is that the body after now they say the baby the sex organs are fully formed. This is I would say it's a female child or a male child. The second last slide. The second last slide. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, there you go.
That slide is that if you look at the one on your left, extreme left, the extreme left the chemical at the bottom is the one that controls salt in the body. The one at the middle is the one that manages to balance our stress and help us to fight in time of stress. And then the last one produces some male hormone. Whether you are female or a male, you produce some male hormone. So where there is the red line, the red line, what can happen is that there is one of the enzymes sometimes, this is the most common one, is that what can happen is this child is born a female. But then as the child is growing up, because the child is missing the enzyme that makes the most important, the middle one is the one that controls the formation of these hormones. So if this hormone at the center is not there, so the body can sense that you don't have the hormone that is required for stress. So it produces a lot of the chemicals before that enzyme, but the enzyme is not there. So what will happen? All the hormones, all the chemicals will go towards that chemical which forms the male hormones. The child is a female, but then the hormones goes towards the male side.
Right.
So the child, there are two types. One is born completely looking like a boy. The only thing that the child doesn't have testes. But then then this one, the only thing that you can tell is that, but then these children, by the time they are reaching 2 weeks, they might collapse in the hospital, might appear very dehydrated, and people might not know the problem. What is the cause? But the problem is, this is not a child. This is not a female. This is not a male child. It's a female child who is missing one of the two important chemicals, the one that controls salt and the one that controls stress. Those two, if you don't have, by the time the child doesn't have, by the time the child reaches 2 weeks, the child will collapse at one time, because you require salt to be controlled. You require to be able to fight infection in the body. If the child doesn't have by 2 weeks, for 1 month, the child will collapse.
And is there a way of telling that this is why they're collapsing? Because I can imagine the stress of a parent. If the child collapses, you probably would imagine the other things before you even know that it's just an issue of salt levels not being controlled.
This is where we require a lot of information for the people in the medical field. Yeah, because when you see a child comes to the hospital with dehydration, it's not always because the child has diarrhea. Because some of these children come with vomiting, and that's what they present with. But then you look down, and then you feel the testes. If you don't feel the testes in this baby, think quickly and check how much salt does this baby have in the body. If you see the salt is low, then quickly replace the chemical at the center, which you call cortisol, and then everything will come in place. But this child will require that cortisol for the rest of her life.
So that becomes something that you have to intervene for the rest of their lives.
For the rest of their lives.
Is the situation fatal at that point?
It's fatal.
Okay.
It's fatal if it is not taken care of. What you look at, because the first time that I was working in Kenyatta, when I went there, I found a mother who had given birth to 4 children. All of them were dead apart from one. All of them.
Quadruplets or 4?
No, separate time. They used to come to the hospital with dehydration, and they don't have diarrhea. Dehydration. So when she told me, she had been told there was a problem up country, like you have a problem or something like that. But then when we checked, that's when we checked, and we found actually the child was the child had a male name, and we found the child actually was female. Had even the uterus, or everything was there. But the external genitalia were. But the others who don't present at birth, it's not fatal. They grow, they don't look up like they are big ones. The organs look okay, it's a female. But as they start growing, the center of the female organ now start elongating itself and becomes completely like a man. And when you get them even by 4 years, you find this girl who has the center of their female organ looking exactly like because the organ becomes so big, it looks like a boy of about 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So this child growing will look like a boy, but was born a girl. But if you check, what you require to check this child is to check with how much salt they have in the body, which is something very easy to do. In any hospital, it doesn't cost more than 500.
Okay, that's something you'd have to have done in a hospital.
You can't do it at home. You can't self. Okay. But the only thing that you can check that the baby doesn't have testes. Most mothers, they bathe their babies, but they never look the pocket whether it's empty or it has something.
But with the testes, there is a certain age that is supposed to descend.
By birth, it should be there.
Or by birth, it should be there?
It should be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at intervention.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about now, for instance, there are those who are born and it can be fatal because there's that imbalance. But there are those who still develop and manage to even get to 10 years, 11 years without deciding or knowing which way they fall. How does one intervene in that instance?
When they are big, when they are 10 years, what you do is they come, and when they come like in our department, what you do, we take them through the investigations. And sometimes the investigation can be a bit expensive because when you are looking for the Y and X chromosome, it's a bit costly. A test, it can go up to 15,000. Now, after you have realized that the genitalia the child has, and the child already has a different name. Let's imagine this child is a girl, and for sure this child is a boy. So what we usually do is that we investigate the child as you're taking our time, because we want the child to give us the consent. Because we are waiting for the hormones to come. Because by 12 years, the hormones start coming to us, becoming more male, and the child actually actually doesn't want to remain a female. And actually the child says, we explain to the child, this is what is happening, and with the father, and they have to go through counseling. It's a whole team. We have to have the surgeon. We need a psychologist to take us through. We need the pediatric endocrinologist, that's where I come in. We need the pediatrician, and we need the family, the nuclear family, and the grandparents to be involved in this.
Yes, because this is a whole transformation of the person.
Yes, it's a whole transformation of the person. So when we get the relative in this picture, the psychologist, then we liaise with the psychologist, and we tell the psychologist, this is information we want this child to get. We are going to, the child will have, there is some correction sometimes, because sometimes they are passing urine from the bottom instead of from the top. If it is a boy, a girl who has been brought up as a girl, but then we have to, the structure, we have to tell them about the structure, what need to be done, and then we need how the operation, to explain to them how the operation needs to be done. And then the psychologist is the one who will tell us, now the family is ready. When the family is ready, now we hand over to the surgeon. And then when we're with the surgeon, we never leave the child, because us is to make sure that the child become productive later on in life. We have to see, will the child be able to function as a man? Does the child require a booster of the chemicals to become a man? So which sometimes we supplement them so that they remain a man. Yeah, but if the child is a female, like the one I'm saying is a female, then what we need to do is to explain to the parents to understand it is fatal. The child has to take medication every day. And sometimes, because you see it's genetic, it comes from both sides. We will ask the relative to check whether there is anybody in the family where there is a man who doesn't have children, or there is a woman who doesn't have children, or they have been losing small babies less than 6 months in the family. Then that way we try to
give you an idea of what may be going on. Now, once this surgery has been done, once a surgeon has come in and possibly decided on a certain route in regards to the genitalia, is this reversible?
What you do, we don't like. Most of the time we take the direction that is very easy. We don't usually cut anything. The surgeon don't usually. The only thing that they reduce is the girl who is growing, the center of their female structure is growing too long. That is the one that can be reduced so that they remain female, because you don't want a female who is looking like a man. Right. At the same time. But when you give them the chemical they require, because it's life-threatening, when you give them the chemical, the organs start shrinking, and they're able, so that then the surgeon can reduce it. Okay. Yeah.
Let me take a call from Sami Masharia. Good morning, Sami, and thank you for calling. To your question or comment, sir. Sami Masharia, if you can hear me, to your comment, question, thank you for calling. All right, maybe, all right, Sami Masharia, maybe we'll, all right, Sami Masharia, if you can hear me, I hope you can. Good morning, and thank you for calling.
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Gitonga.
Go right ahead.
Well, let me pose a question to the Terry. Hello? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
This is in regard to sport, and I'm a coach in athletics, and we have had instances where we have females who physically would tend to look like they are male, and but they are regarded as females, and therefore in competitions like they just concluded the Rio Olympics.
Correct.
We have 3 of them who actually had contention that others think they are male, but the IWF for the IOC actually accepted that they are females. And one of them, so to speak, Kata Semenya from South Africa, is known to have even undergone hormonal therapy to just reduce that level of testosterone hormone within her so that she can be accepted to be a female. Daktari, what actually happens? Because I've actually worked very close to some of these athletes, and physically they would appear, all indicators tell you that they could be male. But again, some of them would look like, for instance, the voice would be female, but other aspects like a beard, some of them shave even beard, are more inclined towards the male. What actually happens here? Because we have to have a very clear path so that we are able to coach them either as males or females. Thank you, Dr. Thank
you, Mr. Masharia.
What happens is that I don't know what the international sports committees, what they have decided, but when I was reading last week, the leaders were saying what they require is that internationally it is registered how much male hormones a female should have. Yeah?
There should be a certain threshold.
There should be a certain threshold. That way, then everybody work to make sure that you are, because if like this girl who has male hormones, if left not taking medication, then you become more male. Then what will happen is that you'll be able to do things that the girls will not be able to do. But if it is written, because there are normal levels of testosterone for female, but if it is accepted in the sports field that the female should have this level of hormones, then everybody, there will be no quarrel about that. Yeah, because it's natural. Okay, natural. Sometimes you have people who have a bit of weight, or if sometimes it can be genetic, that you have people who have too much insulin. Insulin, you know it. If you don't have insulin, you have diabetes.
Right.
If you have too much insulin in the body, or you are not sensitive to insulin, you produce a lot of insulin. If you produce a lot of insulin, then it goes to the ovaries, and that's manipulating the ovaries to start producing male hormones. That sometimes you find females who are having beards, who are shaving their beards because they are not males, but they have male hormones. But then people will be told, work it out until your hormones are
come down. Now, medically speaking, is there a way of telling? Because evidently, from what the conversation we're having, genitalia may not be an absolute way of telling that this is male or female. Is there a threshold that medically you can say this is male or this is female? Maybe I'll hold that thought while we take a call. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, Haman. Thank you for calling. To your question.
Yes, habari ya asubuhi.
Mzuri kabisa.
Nimeona uko daktari kwa TV. Nikafurahia sana kwa sababu kuna swali nilikuwa nataka nisaidia.
Haya, uliza.
Nina kijana ana miaka 15. Na alikuwa na shida ya heart.
Shida ya moyo.
Na baadaye alikuwa na condition inaitwa hyperplasia. Sasa ndio nilikuwa nauliza saizi bado hajaifanyiwa kazi hiyo nini condition. Ile wanasemanga kuna leaking urethra.
Okay.
Hello. Sasa ndio nilikuwa namuuliza. Itasaidikaje ndio hiyo nini yake ikuwe filled hiyo urethra.
Okay. Haya, asante.
What you mentioned about hypospadia means is that, you know, the male organs, that the urine comes out at the top, at the tip. Hypospadia means that the channel is not well formed. It is coming out at the base or at the middle.
But the person is fully male.
It's fully male, but then it is. But sometimes they might be thinking that the patient is male until full investigate, and especially somebody with a heart problem. Maybe it is a heart problem we combine with something also in the genitalia. So it'd be very good you just come to Kenyatta Hospital. There is come to Kenyatta. When you come to Kenyatta, just ask for a endocrinology clinic. The clinic is usually on Tuesdays, and we will look at the child. And when you look at the child, then you tell you which direction to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
Daktari, we're out of time. A yes/no question: is there a medical way of telling this is male or female?
You
apart
can
from just genitalia?
We check. You can check the level of the testosterone.
Okay, thank you very much.